let me start out by referring to the minutes of the May meeting. I would like to ask for approval of the minutes of the May meeting. May I have a motion for approval?
Make a motion. I think that was Commissioner Sabu, but I'll second it.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion? All right. So I called a question and asked Council Graff to do the roll call.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Sabu,
Yes, present. Sorry, took time to unmute.
thank you. Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Vigilic.
I was absent from the May meeting, so I'll abstain.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Hainsworth, Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you very much. So in the fall of 2020, seems like so long ago, we began a series of guest speakers to provide the commission and staff with various perspectives about a post-COVID-19 recovery, economic recovery. These thought leaders will help us provide strategic vision for our future. Vice Chair Quigley, will you please introduce tonight's speaker?
Absolutely. I'm so very proud to introduce this evening's speaker, Jennifer Ives. I've known Jennifer for a while for being a not only someone I've done work in business with before, but being a local leader and becoming an icon for our area, really representing some very important critical topics. Let me walk through her bio a little bit for everybody, though, so you get to know her as well as I do. Jennifer Ives is an award-winning global business executive with more than 20 years of experience leading high-performing teams, crafting revenue-generating strategies and driving double-digit financial results at digital product and data-intensive companies around the world. During her career, she has had responsibility for P&L and a variety of leadership functions, including global sales, marketing, strategic growth, and partnerships. Jennifer began her professional journey as a geospatial engineer, where she developed and managed the creation of digital products for national security agencies and global organizations alike, and has worked at the intersection of emerging technology, businesses, and people ever since. Prior to her recent role as Senior Vice President at Three Pillar Global, a Fairfax County-based private equity-backed custom digital product services company, she was the Senior Vice President of North America at Top Employers Institute, an Amsterdam-based services and data analytics firm serving Fortune 500 clients around the world, including SAP, Nike, and PepsiCo. She led strategic growth at LiveSafe, a venture-backed enterprise-class SaaS safety and risk intelligence platform, now part of the Vector Solutions family. Jennifer uniquely understands the critical relationships between the public and private sector, having held the role of Director of Business Investment for Arlington Economic Development, during a time in which the federal and academic institutions such as DARPA and Virginia Tech and high growth and Fortune 500 companies, including Applied Predictive Technologies, now part of the MasterCard family, Opower, now part of Oracle, Boeing, AES, Deloitte Federal, all made investments to expand and or make Arlington County their home. You got to stop bragging about Arlington. A self-described data geek, Jennifer is a sought-after advisor, speaker, and author with multiple recognitions as a top executive, including being named 2 times to the top 50 women leaders in SaaS by the Software Report, making their top 5 list in 2022. She serves on the board of Boolean Girl, is an advisor, board member for venture-backed The Mentor Method and IES Women in Sales Leadership Forum, and a founding member of Chief. Most recently, Jennifer co-authored the top-selling book, Heels to Deals, How Women Are Dominating in Business to Business and Sales. Jennifer, her husband, 2 children, and their big fluffy Bernese mountain dog call Arlington and the Washington, D.C. Area their home. And I'm very proud to introduce Jennifer to our to our lovely commission. Jennifer, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. And again, very honored to join you all this evening. James, it's so great to see you. And I grew up in Fairfax County. I do now live in Arlington. However, I grew up in Fairfax County. I went to George Mason University for my undergraduate degree and was born and raised in this area. So it's a real honor to join you. I also had the privilege of working with your very own Alex while I was in Arlington County. So I love to see that he's making some amazing waves over in Fairfax County. Y'all are very lucky to have him, and I know that you feel that way as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jennifer, beyond some topics that you want to touch on, certainly we're going to have a number of questions and open dialogue. And I'll certainly I'm going to enjoy having our board engage with you as well. And obviously your very specific background of having worked in tech in our area, having worked in tech that impacts the world, but also having seen economic development is going to obviously be something that we'll press on as well.
Absolutely. I look forward to it because it's a really unique conversation to have been in the private sector and then moved over into the public sector and economic development specifically, and helping a community grow their economic base and really helping a region grow its economic base, and then moving back into the private sector and working for some global fast growing technology companies. So yeah, I can see that it's a unique background and one well poised for this conversation.
Yeah. I don't know if you had any comments you wanted to offer up front or any presentation materials. Otherwise, we certainly have a number of questions we can start with.
No, let's get right into the questions. I think that a fireside chat is always best when we just kind of have a conversation. And again, I'm not sure if anyone wants to ask questions throughout or at the end, but I'm very open to the open dialogue.
And I'm going to certainly open it up. And I think the reason for inviting Jennifer is, again, not only that intersection of those 2 points, but I think there's actually a beautiful third point too. As we learned and known, certainly in our gut, but now it's proven economically, is that diversity in thought, background, experience, gender, race within organizations helps those organizations become more successful. If we're all capitalists at heart, we need to look to those areas. And this third point as well is that Jennifer's been on the forefront of fighting for diversity within businesses for some time, and certainly put her money where her mouth is by investing her critical time into some really important organizations that are looking at especially women within tech. So I thank you for that, Jennifer. Let me start though. I'm going to go a little bit high and hit you from the economic development perspective too. Now that you've seen it from sort of both sides, based on your economic development experience, what do you see as the capital region's greatest strength and greatest challenges right now?
Gosh, so some of the greatest strengths are things that I think that we're all aware of, but I would be remiss if I didn't state them, right? The low tax rate, the concentration of talent, that innovation, economy-based talent that is so critical to the growth of the private sector as well as the public sector. It's a huge strength for this area. The well-respected universities that make up the DC region. These are all things that help the private sector and the public sector attract amazing talent, retain amazing talent. So again, that the low tax rate, but that concentration of talent and the access to the respected universities and other organizations that are really investing in the workforce of the future. It does not go unnoticed by the private sector, by companies that are looking to expand, that are homegrown here in Fairfax County. They're looking to expand, and also those that are looking to expand into Fairfax County, into the region, and or create their headquarters in the area. So that's really important. The healthy, livable area that we call home here in the DC area. So the bike trails, the rivers, the hiking availability, and not too far from hiking trails. Variety of housing options. These are all really important. Again, in the last 15 years, last 12 years or so that I've been back in the private sector, and we're looking to attract new talent at all levels of the company. These are all things that even pre-COVID, our new employees would talk with us about when we were trying to attract and retain those employees. These are all things that are really important. They're not just marketing logo, marketing speak when it comes to economic development. They're real. This is what happens in the private sector. These are real things. Mass transit, access to mass transit, and something that I think we talk a lot about. And I know that when I was in economic development, we talked a lot about it as well. Except now that I've been in the private sector for many years, back in the private sector, the access to 2 airports is incredible for this area. The fact that we can be part of a global economy at the drop of a hat, you can get on an airplane, you can fly to different parts of the US, you can fly overseas, you can bring clients in from overseas, right? That accessibility to the global market is really important. So those are some of the things that we're doing well, and the things that we have here and that we've invested as a region, that we've invested in here in the DC area. Some of the greatest challenges has to do with the housing choices, right? That cost of living is really challenging for this area. There are other locations throughout the country, and quite honestly, throughout the world, that people can now, depending upon their job, they can now go and kind of work from anywhere. So the cost of housing is something to be aware of, keep an eye on, and in terms of economic development, see how you can be part of that conversation, continue to be part of that conversation. I think what I would say isn't a challenge, and I love what Fairfax County is doing, investing in the sense of place, right? So Mosaic, Fairfax Corner, Reston Town Center, and everything that the county is doing around the Tyson's Corner area to really make it walkable, to make a sense of place. These are all incredibly important pieces to an area that people want to come, they want to work, they want to play, they want to be part of a particular area. So those would be kind of the strengths, and also maybe a challenge, and then an opportunity, that sense of place that Fairfax County is investing so much in.
Well, spoken like someone who's definitely seen both sides of the equation from both the economic development and the private sector world. Let me hit on one of those points there too. I mean, a lot of the strengths that you pulled up are very much about point of presence of workers. And sort of a 2-part question here. One, obviously, through COVID, so many organizations are considering their options with regard to remote workers versus in-presence worker, in presence. How do you see COVID changing how 3-pillar looks at sort of that equation of, of people in presence? But I ask you that very specifically because you guys are known for having operated remote workers and how many countries now? You guys have workers in, I would imagine, 5-6 countries. I'm probably underestimating it. Certainly a number of countries. So you probably have figured out ways to master how organizations can work culturally with remote workers. But how do you see the 2-part questions on this point of presence is, how do you see COVID sort of changing the landscape of what is important for getting companies excited about the area? And 2, how have you guys mastered this cultural change of where people work? And you guys have been obviously doing it for a long time.
Yeah, we have the blessing in the last couple of companies that I've helped lead have had the blessing of being global first. So, whether they were DC, this area based in Fairfax County, or in the case where I worked for a company based in Amsterdam, we were a global company. So the idea of working from anywhere, it wasn't named that, it was just part of the culture of the business. And in hindsight, it was an excellent way to be working, right? Because we were able to bring in lots of ideas, lots of people from lots of different countries, lots of time zones, and we didn't feel the need to always be together. Now, with that said, I, as a leader, and all of the companies that I've been part of that have been global in nature, we have always found purposeful moments to be together. So the fact that we were remote or had team members that were overseas or in another city outside of the DC area, that's wonderful, right? Because you can cover lots of time zones, you can bring in new diversity of thought, new ways of thinking, you can attract talent from different markets, you can do all of those things. However, it's really important to make sure that teams feel connected and to make sure that when you're bringing teams together, there is a purposeful moment. There's a purpose to bringing together and to being together, and that it is important. In none of those companies did we ever go more than a couple of weeks without actually being in person. And to be quite honest, it was either being in person with each other or it was in person with our clients. So we always felt also that we couldn't always be remote with our clients. We needed to be on site. We needed to fly in. We needed to meet with them. And depending upon the company, again, we had regular visits where we would go in once a month, maybe for 2 days. We would bring in team members from around the country or around the world. But it was a very specific and scheduled time, because people are people. And I feel very strongly, and I've seen companies do it really, really well, bringing people together, even during the pandemic and everyone going remote, especially early in the pandemic. But people are human beings. We like to be together. We get energy from each other. Even the most introverted of us gain some energy and some creativity from each other. And I think it's all about rethinking why and how you bring people together. So I've mentioned the phrase or the word purposeful. That's been part of my lexicon now for a couple of years. And I just think it's really important. And I've seen some great leaders internal to 3Pillar and external at other companies and with other organizations really think about that purposeful bringing together of people. We have, 3Pillar, 3Pillar has an office in Fairfax Town Center, very walkable. It was decided to move there for a really specific reason. We wanted to have places that people could meet and people could have lunch and they could get out of the office and walk around. And even throughout the pandemic, the office has been open. It's been open for anyone who wants to be there at any time, Monday through Friday, even on the weekends. And then 3Pillar took a very, I think a great way of approaching this and did, brought people together in a purposeful manner. So depending upon the cadence with the team, that could have been once a week. It could have been once every 2 weeks. It could have been once a month. And then we would bring together folks. Again, it depends on the team and on the leader, but absolutely once a quarter, we would have a number, large groups together so that we could be together and we could spend time together and we could talk about strategy and we could talk about what just happened in the last quarter and what KPIs are going to be set for the next quarter and what needs to be adjusted. And let's go enjoy lunch and let's go make some memories that aren't just Zoom or via Teams or Google Hangout. So hopefully that addresses the first part of your question. I'll pause there for a moment, James, and see if you have any other question as it relates to.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I think obviously you hit on the big pieces. You've got to be very purposeful about the in-person engagements, and not only for developing teamwork and team cohesion, but you find high degrees of innovation come through these collisions that happen through happenstance that aren't completely planned. The entire, there's office buildings who are designed just for those innovation collisions in organizations who have to be thinking about the next innovation, the next component.
Exactly. And in fact, our office rebuild just a couple of years ago focused on those types of accidental meetings and collision of ideas. And so it's a very open office space where you have these different kind of rooms throughout the office that people can gather and people can run into each other and have those moments. Yeah.
To talk about the first piece too, and I know, having known you're the CEO of your past company here, 3Pillar, quite well, David, through the years, and I know as he was considering talent and talent growth, he had struggles about forget about the international, the people who are doing the coding and things like that for your organization. But even finding those nearshore or onshore resources, that there was constant sort of the push and pull of, hey, headquartering here is great, but can I continue to hire here? Do I hire other places in the United States? And certainly that dovetails to another question I'm going to talk about with talent in a minute, but to talk a little bit about sort of that struggle and push and pull of being in this region with regard to talent, growing your talent and to get the work done versus just having a headquarters here. and how COVID may have changed that.
Yeah, I would say for myself as a leader, whether at 3Pillar or another company, COVID opened up, it forced companies, it could be seen as a silver lining. It really depends on how you look at it. But COVID opened up the possibility of hiring from across the US, outside of the US, but really opened up that possibility, and talent was open to that idea. Companies have become open to that idea. So that is something that in terms of economic development, you want to have an eye on, and you want to see how can that benefit, and how can you help work with companies who are opening up that aperture and hiring from outside of the area. The competition for talent and to attract talent is so, you all know the numbers, right? It is a job seekers market. So it is really important to get the best of the best. And if you need to open that aperture a little bit further and wider, companies have to do that to stay relevant, to stay competitive, to stay in line with their hiring needs. It's part of what every company around, not just here in the DC area, but around the country and really around the world is facing at the moment, is to make sure that they open up that aperture and hire from outside of the area. Now, they bring those, bring those folks into the area for meetings and for all sorts of things. But again, that desire for talent and desire for a specific type of talent, especially in the technology arena, is so critical. And the DC area, the Northern Virginia area, has an incredible talent pool and talent base, which is amazing. And again, I listed it as, when you asked me about the benefits of the DC region and of Fairfax County and of the Northern Virginia region, that access to talent is there. But it would not be truthful to say there's no problem. We can get everyone we need here in the Northern Virginia, the DC region. It's just not the case. The companies are growing so quickly, and the access to talent is it's such a critical need that it really requires opening up the ability to hire from outside of the area.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to everyone.
Yep.
I'll just add one follow-up. I have so many questions. We could certainly go on for 4 hours too. The unique part, especially about your last position too, clearly other positions that you've had experience with, Jennifer, but with 3Pillar, you guys develop very close relationships with a lot of tech companies. You guys become the technical backbone for many tech, whether it's mid-stage to later stage organizations. So you guys get a chance to sort of have a unique view into so many other tech companies. Are they all facing these? I mean, what are you hearing from those organizations with regard to the challenges they have with talent, and what are they doing to offset that let's say that challenge? I was going to say opportunity, but I'm not sure I call it an opportunity. It's opportunity for job seekers, but how are they offsetting that need today? Yeah,
they're hiring from all over. So that should be something front and center for Fairfax County, for the board to be thinking through, and just knowing, again, your board is made up of leaders from all over, Fairfax County. And so you live and breathe this on a daily basis. Every client that I've had the pleasure of working with, and now in advisory roles and on boards, they're hiring from all over. It is not just the location where their headquarters is located. They're hiring from all over. The best thing that a company can do, and again, whether this is a positive or a negative for the board, the best thing a company can do is, on that job application or on that posting, is to say, remote work accepted, a hire from anywhere. Like, there are lots of key phrases, but that's the first thing. Whether you're hiring a CEO, a chief commercial officer, a chief product officer, all the way down to the first, someone right out of college, they want to know that if they like that company, if they understand that company's values, if they understand what that company is building, whether it's a technology company or not, but if they want to, and that's how Gen Zs and younger millennials see this, if they want to bring their talents to that company, they may want to do it from another location, right? They may be living across the country. They may be looking to live in the mountains somewhere and not in a city. Like, there are lots of decisions that people are now making about their life and their lifestyle, that companies are, again, not just three pillar companies around the world. And I sit on some boards and I do some advisory work with technology companies. These are things that they're all taking into consideration. And the ones that are growing the quickest are the ones that have already accepted this, have leaned into it, have embraced it, and have moved forward in terms of how it is that they are attracting their talent and retaining the talent.
Right. Let me turn it over to other board members. If you guys have got other questions, I certainly have pages of questions I can go through. But I'm going to turn it over to, and Kathy, I see
Yeah.
you. I'll turn it over to you, Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jennifer, this really requires creative thinking, right? Around benefits, about what companies can do to position themselves differently from others. Are you seeing anything particularly interesting in terms of what they might be doing for childcare, or I know time off, it's, whatever it is, but what kinds of things are you seeing that are, enabling them to attract those workers? We heard from one firm that they're helping to pay for mortgages. I mean, so what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathy. So I'm seeing very routinely, especially amongst the fastest growing successful companies that I've had the pleasure of working with or I'm working with now, work from anywhere, as I mentioned, right? The work from anywhere, the education credits. So how are you going to invest, right? The new employee, how are you going to invest in me? I'm going to invest in you as a company. How are you going to invest in me? What are the education credits look like? What does learning and development look like? What does your company's kind of university program look like? Some companies, this started a few years ago, and a number of companies are really leaning into paying for helping to pay down student debt. The childcare piece, childcare credits, absolutely. Making sure that, again, it's usually a cafeteria kind of so that you can choose what is good for you in your phase, in what phase of life that you're in at the moment, what really speaks to you. Unlimited vacation, unlimited PTO, we're seeing more and more. And the interesting thing about that is usually with unlimited PTO, many studies show that people don't actually take more than 7 to 10 days of vacation. So I think that a lot of companies are thinking, oh my gosh, unlimited PTO, I can't do that. Well, if you look at the research, and even a couple of years after some companies have started their own unlimited PTO, they find that they're actually having to share with their employees, please take time off. It's really important that you go away for a week in the summer or whenever you feel that you need to, and a week in the fall. Like, I've led teams for years, and I've routinely needed to say to them, have you taken some time off recently? This is really important. We have this benefit and we have it for a reason. So I wouldn't, as leaders of companies, don't be too concerned about the unlimited PTO. You will find overwhelmingly that no one abuses it. And in fact, people tend to underuse it. And you're going to actually have to encourage them to take the time that they really need to recharge and become, come back creative and come back excited. And as we all know, what we feel like when we come back from a really great vacation where we've unplugged and where we've really had a delightful time with family, or hiking a quiet mountain, or going away with 30 people to do something amazing if you're a high extrovert, whatever that is. But you come back recharged and more creative and just ready to kind of tackle the next thing. So Kathy, those are some of the benefits. Again, cafeteria style, so that you can choose what makes sense for you. There are benefits around pet insurance. There are just these different benefits, but I think the key, work from anywhere, unlimited PTO, this kind of, how are you investing in me? I'm going to invest in you, right? That we're going to kind of almost create a deal here where I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to work for you. I'm going to do these amazing things for the company. I'm going to help the company grow in different ways. What are you going to do in return? And that's not said as a kind of give me. It's how are we going to balance this out? How is this going to work? Oh, you've got a university program. Oh, you pay down student debt kind of for every year I work for the company, you'll pay down a certain amount of my student debt. You will invest in my MBA or my, fill in the master's degree program or the certifications. You're going to put certain amount of money every year towards my certifications. Those learning and development benefits are really, really popular for very good reason. And again, it goes to that kind of that back and forth and that relationship you're entering into with your employees as you bring them on.
Other questions?
Yeah, James, I have a question. Jennifer, if you feel comfortable answering this, I'd be interested in your perspective, because obviously top of mind after Friday's Supreme Court ruling, there's been a lot of looks at what companies are going to be able to do or be forced to do in the response of the Dobbs decision, and how companies can care for their employees, their associates. And, we live in a Commonwealth here in Virginia where reproductive rights, at least currently, are still state law. So there's not really a problem here. But as we've recruited a bunch of tech companies to come to Virginia, associates and employees are driving a lot of the conversation, because there's like this socially impacted work that they feel so important to, and they want to know they need to be taken care of. So in the wake of Dobbs, I know it's just a few days since the decision, what do you think employees are going to be demanding of their employers in terms of speaking up, offering travel, offering relocation? I know Google came out with saying there's no justification relocation. Do you see that this to be a watershed moment in relations between social activism and employee and employer relations? Because if this is the beginning of things, you could see it continue with LGBTQIA issues, people of color, et cetera. So just interested in your perspective.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is incredibly timely. And I do believe that companies are going to be needing to take a stand and make a public announcement. And it is speaking volumes, the companies who are taking a stand and making a public announcement, and those who have said nothing. And I say this not based on kind of what I believe and what I feel. I'm saying it based on data and research. The younger millennials and Gen Zs who are coming up and through and kind of coming into the pipeline of talent, they have an expectation that they are entering into this relationship with their company. And when we were talking about education, kind of this give and take, I'm going to work for the company, I'm going to do these great things for the company. How are you going to invest in me? Research and data shows over and over again that younger millennials and Gen Zs have the expectation that they have access to certain kinds of healthcare. So I leave that to those on the board and those in attendance as to the decisions that you all as leaders make. I think I would be very focused on what it is that those who are going to work for, who are currently working for you, as well as the talent who is going to work for you, to choose you or choose another company. This is a huge topic, and it's a huge right that many, many, many people feel is a choice. It's a personal choice, and they're asking the question, where is my company coming out on these kinds of things? And as I advise, and as I sit on some boards, we're having these conversations, and it's something that is not going to go away. I don't believe it's something that's going to go away. I believe that it's going to continue. It should continue. And companies, when they don't say anything, they're speaking volumes.
I'll add to that too. Gartner just came, this is about 6 months ago, actually came out with a study that showed that of this new working class, especially within technology, but that 75% of all employees entering the workforce right now are expecting employers to weigh in on these topics surrounding ESG. 75% want to hear from their company on these topics. And to ratify what Joe said is, Google's statement this week is, and obviously talk about further disruption to economic development, have now said Google, who by the way is very famous for you work in the office, right? Obviously during COVID, they changed it, but of all the tech companies, Apple and Google were the most staunch about you will work in the office. Matter of fact, they wouldn't let people work or set up micro offices because they were big believers that high degrees of hive thought got things done. And Google came out, this last week and said they're going to allow company employees to relocate with no justification. It's the first time Google's ever said that. You can relocate and not tell us why. And that's certainly a very big statement from, one of the 5 largest technology firms in the world right now. Any other questions?
If I might, this is Pallavi. There's a trend I'm seeing post-COVID and pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, it was an employer's market, or certainly there was a balance. You hired for talent, and the talent was expected to work and would get promoted, based on performance. it seems in this world, talent comes with a lot of entitlement. What are you going to do for me? I am only going to work so much. This is my personal time. I'll work wherever I am. I expect you to be socially responsible and pick up on all issues. It just seems the talent expects a lot from the employer, and the employer has his or her back against the wall to get to the talent, which is hard, especially in the IT sector. And this entitlement, it's going to create a productivity issue, I suspect. Jennifer, any thoughts on that? Have you had discussions on that? Is there a concern in the employers group on that?
So I don't see it as entitlement. I see it as a generation of employees who saw their parents and their grandparents go through a recession. They saw their pensions being taken away. They saw the decrease in that commitment that a company had to an employee. And so again, young millennials and Gen Zs, this has been around for many years, for probably the last 15 years, that they have high expectations of the companies that they work for, that they contribute their time and their energy and their brains to. And so I wouldn't classify it as entitlement. I think that it's a contract that you're writing, an agreement that you're writing between kind of who you are as a company, how you believe you should treat your talent, and does that talent then want to be part of that company? And whether leaders believe or agree with this or not, that is where the world is today. So if you're building a company with a particular culture that's attractive to other talent, and you will see that talent come to your company. So I think I would maybe reposition that just a little bit, or reframe it and look at it a little bit differently in terms of what are the benefits, what are what is the talent of today looking for in a company, and does your company, has it kept up with the times? Has it, has it changed the people agreement, the HR benefits, and kind of the culture of the company? Has it really adjusted to the time? Because you see lots of companies that are doing very, very well today in the age of innovation-based economy, with a lot of technology workers, with the ability for those technology workers to transfer their skills to another company very quickly, more so than even 3 years ago, more so than 5 years ago. I mean, when I started as a geospatial engineer, I'm embarrassed by how little I was paid and by what an employer's market it was when I first started out in my career. But you're absolutely correct. Talent can switch companies very easily. There aren't enough computer scientists, coders, data scientists at all levels, right? And you can go on and on with a number of other technology, engineering related tech STEM needs in the market. There aren't enough of those talented brains in the market to fill all the roles that we have today, let alone fill the roles in 2 years and 5 years and in 20 years, right? It's a real challenge. So again, I would really lean into and see what it is that those that you're trying to hire, the age group, the cohort of talent that you're trying to hire, what is it? What is important to them? Because not everyone leaves a company just because they haven't been promoted, right? They have lots of different ways if they see that they can grow in that company, or if they believe that the company is invested in them and cares for them and is sharing the benefits of that company with them, they will stay with that company. So there's lots of great Gartner research, McKinsey research out there to show that. And I've also experienced that with a number of technology companies that I've had the pleasure of being part of. We had to very carefully look to see what was it that cohort of talent, those that we were trying to attract into our company, what were their beliefs? What did they want out of the relationship with their employer? What did they want from a company that they were about to say, yes, I will spend over 40 hours a week and give my time and energy to you in an effort to grow this company and create success and fill in the blank. They are looking for that relationship to be built.
You're right.
Jennifer, this is,
make us change here. Sorry, go on.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, this is Rocky. I just want to kind of tag along on Commissioner Sabu. Could you just amplify, if you would, this whole notion, because I think that tension does exist within a lot of companies, the so-called new employee. Could you kind of elaborate on this conception of employee versus partner, or maybe even independent contractor. People taking ownership of their talents as opposed to being simply employees.
And Rocky, it's a great question. Talk to me, pull the thread on that just a little bit. What piece of that are you looking for my thoughts on? Whether
just in terms of
and
today's market and people coming out of college today, how much of that are you seeing in terms of people looking at themselves as independent contractors as opposed to looking for quote unquote employment?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Great question. I wish I had some numbers on this because I'm a little bit of a data geek, and whenever I espouse something, I like to back it up with numbers. But I'm just going to go on personal experience over the last few years in particular. I've seen, again, as part of being a leader in 3-pillar and in some of the other roles that I carry external to 3-pillar, and now more full-time today as an advisor and board member, I'm seeing it more and more. These are transferable skills that many who are graduating from college see that they could work and really work in a capacity kind of for 2 or 3 companies, and really more be an advisor or consultant to those companies. I don't think that the day and age of working for a company is out of the question at all. I would say that I'm seeing a rise in this kind of in the gig economy, right? In the gig worker or the consultant that at any age, right? Whether they're 18, 21, 25, or 65, wanting to have a little bit more control of their life, wanting to have a little more control and input as to how it is that they're spending their day and the kinds of projects they're working on. Those are all some reasons why the gig economy has flourished so much. And in particular, I can speak to the technology gig economy, seeing it more and more. Absolutely.
Thank you, team. We have so many questions. And Jennifer, thank you. We didn't touch on some of the most critical topics we wanted to, and maybe we could invite you back another time to clearly talk about if we're going to address this issue of getting more talent into tech, how do we get more women started earlier to engage in technology, amongst some other great ideas. And I know some great work that you're doing now within the Chief, especially. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you. It was an honor. It was a real honor. And enjoy your summer break. I think the board gets back together in September, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we meet every month.
Oh, you do? Okay. Somehow I thought you were taking a summer break. All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
So I was so excited to hear what Jennifer had to say. I unfortunately skipped over our treasurer's report. So Commissioner Partridge, would you jump in for us, please?
Happy to, Madam Chair. As you all know, there's only 1 month remaining. So for the May budget, we are almost spent out. We're just a little over 10%. And in talking to Donna, it looks like we're going to spend everything out this month that we're in now in June. So at next board meeting, we'll give an update, and I think we'll be totally spent out. But you can see, if you look at the detailed budget, travel has come roaring back. This, I think, was the highest month of the year on travel. So people are back, as Donna said, in the air and on the road, spreading the word about Fairfax County. So we're excited that we're on track. And unless you have any questions, that is my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Great. So the next item on our agenda is the IRB fee fund discussion. I sent you some information as background a couple of weeks ago, and I just want to remind you that in 2017, the EDA approved a policy regarding the collection of IRB fees. Thank you very much, Commissioner Mitchell, for giving us that advice. And we did some research on it and came up with a policy. I'm happy to say that since 2018, we've been collecting those funds, and the request before you tonight by staff is to allocate an accumulated amount of $365,629.69 for business investment digital marketing that we would spend in fiscal 23. I personally am very supportive of this, but I do want to see if there are any questions, and then we will move to vote as per our policy. Okay, with that, I would like to hear a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Very good. All right. So I'm going to ask our council to please do the roll.
Very good. I'll start with Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Vigilic,
Aye. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
I vote aye.
I voted for you.
It's all right.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Hainsworth, Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye. All right, let's put that money to great use. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's move on to Executive Vice President Imes. Alex?
Thank you, Chair Lang, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome our colleagues from the Department of Economic Initiatives, Rebecca Maudry, Etta Nahapetian, and Jamie Gaucher. We've been working with them on standing up the Fairfax Founders Fund program. And I'd also like to recognize Vice Chair Quigley and Secretary Johnson for their roles developing and reviewing the program information that you will hear tonight. The Founders Fund is a proposed grant and technical assistance program to support early stage technologies with an emphasis on reaching underrepresented and diverse founders. And the Board of Supervisors is preparing to act on funding for the program. EDA is being asked to serve as the conduit for the funds, as we've done in the past for programs like RISE and Pivot. And with that in mind, we have the DEI team here to share more information about this and answer any questions that you may have. So at this point, I will turn it over to Etta.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks so much. Thank you all for the opportunity to meet with you here today. I'm Etta Nahapetian, Manager of Smart Community Innovation and Strategy in the Department of Economic Initiatives, and I'm here with my colleague, Jamie Gaucher, Manager of our Division of Economic Innovation and Strategy, and our Director, Rebecca Maudry. So thank you all. Thank you very much, Alex, for moving the slides forward for me. Next slide, please. So, and I will try to move fairly quickly through these slides, but please stop me at any time if you have any questions on anything. I will try not to read every single word on the slides. But a little bit of background here. This is our agenda, and the Fairfax Founders Fund is in response to some issues that were presented in a board matter back in July of 2021 by our Chairman McKay and Supervisors Faust and Stork. And as Alex mentioned, our region is the lack of early stage equity capital is a factor in inhibiting our growth. And the matter also highlighted the fact that that female and minority businesses in general have less access to capital, and more specifically, diverse founders are traditionally underrepresented in equity funding. So next slide, please. So this is our response to Fairfax Founders Fund, which is a grant and technical assistance program for early stage founders to get them off the ground. It's a tool to connect founders with resources. It's to provide connections with the community through entrepreneurial support organizations. We call it an on-ramp to the venture capital superhighway, but it's also an opportunity to really promote the resources and advantages for startups that we have in Fairfax County. So ideally, the program is going to strengthen the ecosystem. It's going to create an environment and a culture conducive to the birth of high growth companies, and hopefully inspire institutional investment by other partners in these companies, growing businesses and jobs and promoting economic mobility. So we're anticipating through this pilot program that we'll be able to, the funding will be dispersed over 2 years. And it's certainly in support of One Fairfax, our racial and equity policy. Next slide, please. So we're going to be asking for $1 million, and the $1 million will include the administrative and marketing costs for the program. We're anticipating that the awards will be in the $10,000 to $50,000 range, and it's going to be funded through the Economic Opportunity Reserve. Next slide, please. So we've engaged with our board a couple of times. We met with the board's Economic Initiatives Committee twice, with the EAC Innovation Subcommittee a couple times, and there's folks here in this room who are on the Innovation Subcommittee. We've really conceptualized a program with the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, and there's a lot of symmetry between the Fairfax Founders Fund and the Commonwealth Commercialization Fund. And we're really hoping that this programs can really speak to each other and support each other and be matches for each other, and really kind of one be a conduit to the other. These are some of the folks that we've spoken with. James has been a great thought leader for us in this whole program, and James came with us actually to speak at the Economic Initiatives Committee back in February. So James, thank you so much for your thought leadership in this. And we've got some other folks in the venture capital world in the region that have engaged with us and who have committed to be part of our advisory committee. And so we're really excited with the partners that we've brought to the fore so far. Next slide, please. So just as a visual to kind of show where the Founders Fund fits in, we're looking to assist really early pre-seed companies with grants and the technical assistance. At this stage, companies need mentors, education, connections. So they really need a network. It's equally important to the funding. And a little bit of a word on early stage funding at this point is often family, friends, personal savings. And generally speaking, underrepresented founders, such as Black-owned businesses, they're starting with the average of 1/3 less overall capital. And COVID-19 has only exacerbated the challenges. So this is next slide, please. So, this is just such an interesting metric. For decades, Latinx and Black students have been earning bachelor's degrees and master's degrees at exponentially higher and higher rates, but they're not really translating into representation. So, basically the Latinx and Black population are 80% underrepresented as startup executives. And yet, as though diverse teams have been proven to create more profitable companies, women and Latinx population are still underrepresented. And it creates, and generally speaking, VC firms are looking for other folks in their network. And if their network is not very diverse, it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. And just a quick word on women-led ventures. In 2020, while venture investments increased nationally by 16.2%, investments in female-founded businesses fell by 3%. So it's increasingly important that we focus on this population. Next slide, please. Just a few. So here we'll talk about some of the program components. And again, stop me at any time if you need me to. Next slide, please. So we're looking for Fairfax-based companies, the principal place of business in Fairfax. We're looking for companies that actually do not have gross revenue more than $250,000, because we figure if they do have revenue more than that, they can fund the $10,000 to $50,000 themselves. We're looking for scalable, disruptive technology. We don't have a long list of all the technologies that we're looking at because it just became kind of an unmanageable list. So we're just trying to use these words as in that they are a product company, that they're on the trajectory to access institutional investment, and that they're in innovation sectors, where we're asking that the companies provide a match, 50% match, but it could be sweat equity in the salary of the founder or business expenses, etc. Next slide, please. So eligible use of funds, it can be, we're trying to be pretty open-ended and give the founders flexibility on what they're going to use the money for. And yet at the same time, we want there to be some tangible something. At the end of the day, we and they can say, this is what we spent the money on. And we're going to be expecting milestones for project completion. So prototype development, customer acquisition, legal fees associated with developing IP, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. So terms and conditions, applicant must be in good standing with Fairfax County and the Commonwealth. The county is not going to take any ownership or intellectual property. We're the recipients will retain title to the equipment. We will be asking the recipients to sign a performance agreement, and the agreement will be signed with the EDA, and the county will be a third-party beneficiary to the agreement and with enforcement rights. So we'll be working on this together. And they will also be providing a reporting schedule, proposal budgets. And if the activity leaves Fairfax within 24 months, we will be asking for repayment on a prorated basis. Next slide, please. So the intake process, it's a two-step process. The first step is generally will be including the general components of a business plan, description of the product, the market, their commercialization plans, that kind of thing. But we're looking, we're not looking for, a 20-page tome from these applicants. We want there to actually be a relatively low barrier to entry, because we want folks that aren't necessarily ready for the funding. We want them to come to us so we can connect them with the resources in the community, whether it's folks at the EDA that can help them with what they need, or ICAP or other state programs. We want it to be a pretty welcoming space when they first come into the submission process. And then step 2 is going to be including a pitch or interview with the advisory committee. And we'll have representation with some folks in this room and others that we've been speaking to as we conceptualize the program. Next slide, please. So some of the measures that we'll be tracking over time, certainly we're going to be asking them to provide information to us over 5 years, and from receipt of the funding, and the reporting will include sales and revenue, also jobs, full and part-time employees, whether they've received follow-on investment, what are their sales numbers looking like, have they created IP, that kind of thing. And Department of Economic Initiative staff will also be tracking to see, have we been engaging with the population that we're targeting? Have we been reaching out and talking to underrepresented founders? And have we been making referrals to the services that are available in the community? And then you have a little side bullet there. Maybe that should be in bigger font, just a little word on the risk profile. Generally speaking, this is pre-seed companies is a pretty risky set of folks. So, more than 2/3 of startups do not deliver on a positive return on the investors. But this is about building the ecosystem. This is about, and that's kind of hard to measure in the short term, but it's about combining seed funding with training and creating an ecosystem where people are connected to each other. We want to grow a cadre of seasoned founders that know how to iterate and are connected with each other. So that's kind of what it's about. Next slide, please. So next steps, we actually have the action item going to the board tomorrow at the board meeting on Tuesday. And once we have that in place, once we get the funding in place, we can move on to developing the memorandum of understanding between us and the EDA, and finalizing the membership of the advisory committee, and developing the performance agreement language, that kind of thing. The communication and marketing plan is absolutely key. We need to make sure that we're reaching the right folks, and we will be we'll be dispersing the funds through a third-party grant administrator. We've got some folks already in mind for that, and they're also will be setting up the webpage and that kind of thing, and doing that kind of taking a look at the financial statements and that kind of piece. So next slide, I think we're complete. So I'll leave it open if anyone has any questions.
First, I did want to add just one thing at the very least too, I really appreciate that the county getting down in the dirt to work on some of the key critical issues that the area is facing. And the fact that the board, when I had a chance to sit and hear to offer some comments during your first testimony on this program, that the board was so open to looking at creative programs to find ways to further invest in our region as a whole. So, and thank you for your hard work there. One of the things I'll repeat for our group that I'd offered during my comments during the testimony was that programs like this, we just have to have the fortitude to stand behind them for more than 2 years. You've got to be patient with programs like this. After 2 years, a change of political environment, you can't look backwards and say, oh, we found the next Google and it's female backed and it happened in 2 years. Like these programs do work, especially with how I think ETA and the team have set them up, but it takes time. The average first exit for, an early stage company to have a decent return too is usually in the 7 to 10 year time frame. So I'm hoping that the county has the patience and fortitude to continue to invest in this so that we can really see the potential impact, not only in economic growth, in revenue and wealth, but in jobs too, right? That these will create jobs. And if I looked at the numbers the way I did, and what the state is willing to pay for jobs, or has been willing to pay for jobs, that the division on this is actually fairly affordable for the jobs created. But anyway, those were my comments, and congrats again on getting this program off the ground. But
Thank you,
I
Etta.
have
This
a-
is exciting. Yeah. Who is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairwoman Lang. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I
Go
didn't mean to
ahead.
interrupt
No
you.
joke, for sure. Go.
Just a couple of questions here. So you mentioned that I don't remember what they're called now, but the former CIT you consulted with. How you think that this would work in partnership with them? Because my understanding is, if my memory holds, they take an equity portion in the organizations and companies that they support. So my reading of this is really just a grant where they just need to maintain being in good standing and retain presence in the county. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So BIPC. So BIPC is their new name, and I'm getting used to it. I'm getting pretty good. CIT is starting to sound old, which is like I thought I'd never break out of the habit. But they have different programs, and it's possible you're thinking of Mach 37, which does take an equity ownership. The Commonwealth, the Commonwealth Commercialization Fund does not. That's my understanding that it does.
CIT Gap Fund does.
Yes.
CIC doesn't, and Mach 37 does though too. So this is different from a normal. You're not looking for equity, right? These are early stage grants to sort of offer an on-ramp for these companies to be able to ultimately at the end pitch though to equity-based investors, right?
Right. And we are actually not allowed to take an ownership stake from the county's perspective. So we aren't able to. And and we want to perhaps provide, and I didn't really elaborate as much on the technical assistance piece, but we may require them, for example, to go through technical assistance. ICAP is free, but there are some various programs that are not free, and perhaps we pay for them to go through those programs, and then they don't have to give a percent of their company to go through one of those incubator or accelerator programs.
Yeah, I agree with Vice Chairman quickly on his point that this really needs to be something that gets almost like an incubator environment where you're creating the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and startup culture that will build over time. And the one thing I'm cautious about is this creates the opportunity that's a little bit inorganic to measure in terms of this creates a community of startups and entrepreneurship that organically grows over time and where you may not see the benefit directly from the initial investment of $50,000 in the company X, but because they started here, they tell their folks that they meet at a conference or they tell their former colleagues, it creates that organic way of creating a culture of entrepreneurship and small business capital formation that I think would be pay dividends. And that's where I think that it will be on the group to make sure that that is well understood by the stakeholders at the board of supervisors levels and all folks that are concerned or interested in the matter, because this has the opportunity to pay off dividends. And I love your little carve out at the bottom there, that little asterisk saying, this is not a guaranteed success. We cannot guarantee that this will pay off dividends for company X or Y or Z, but as taken in total, that this has the ability to really create an image and a brand for Fairfax County that supplements existing programs and offerings that can really expand our view in this kind of growth sector. And I think it actually plays into with what Jennifer was talking about, how Fairfax County has been a great place to not only grow a business, but to raise a family and have a community. And so it plays very nicely in a lot of work that both the board and the EDA is doing. So best of luck. And if there's anything that we individually can do or this board can do, I'm certainly helpful.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely.
And I'll just add one little thing to what you're saying is that not only is it about branding, but hopefully it is also going to inspire others to provide investments to match our funding. Maybe angel investors, we talk about how risk averse people with money are around here compared to other places like perhaps Silicon Valley. And perhaps once they see that the county is investing in certain companies, maybe that's a certain brand of approval that we can leverage that money and attract additional investors into these.
It is true too, that early investments like this, especially the minute you've raised it, it's the easiest time to raise a little bit more because, and sometimes it's actually the gating necessary for you to get someone else's, fundraising. CIT gap fund's a great example. They typically don't like to lead around, but if you had $200,000 and you needed $200,000, if you raised 200 and you went to CIT gap, it unlocks a gate for you getting another 200,000. So something like this could open up another investor saying, oh, well, I'll match that. So there is unexpected things that can come from early stage investing, or I say investing sort of support of these companies. And as well, it becomes an experiment for our area. I mean, Jennifer's still here. For us to be seen as a region who's really committed to investing in diverse startups. And I think that creates a brand for yourself too. I mean, does that, help us stand out and attract more talent that wants to be in a region that's committed to those sort of that sort of ethos.
I want to echo what James is saying, because you're right. You need that gating. There's a lot of people with money here. I mean, there are many millionaires for sure, but there are a few billionaires around, but nobody has the time to do that gating, right? To get a validation. And CIT, along with what you guys are doing now, just creates a comfort factor for those looking to invest. So certainly, I think it's a great service to the community.
We look forward, Edda, to hearing future reports back on how we're doing. And of course, let us know how we can be of help. So we're going to move on to Vice President Hurwitz.
Thank you. I have two brief items to bring to you this evening, and both of them will require a vote by the commission. So let me go through each of them, and then I will turn it back to the chair for the vote. On May 10th, the County Board of Supervisors approved the FY23 budget for the new fiscal year that begins July 1st, which is this Friday. And we are very pleased and appreciative that this budget includes a market rate adjustment salary increase of 4.01% for all EDA employees. And this has been fully funded by the county. Tonight, I'm asking the commission to approve the salary action for all EDA employees, which is your role to do. The second item that I'm bringing to you, and this was included in the packet that went out to you, the Virginia Public Procurement Act requires us to have our own procurement guideline that details very specifically the procurement guidelines that we at the EDA follow. And every year at this time, we ask our McGuire Woods procurement attorney, Mike Graff's colleague, to review the guideline for us and to make sure that it's updated for any changes that have been enacted by the General Assembly. So we did need to make an update to the document this year. There's some very minor changes in Section 3, and they relate to construction projects and bonds, bid bonds and performance and payment bonds. Now, this is something that the EDA, certainly during my tenure, has not let any construction contracts, and would be a very rare situation for us to do so. But it is included in our guideline because it would be possible, for example, if we were to do a renovation of our office suite, then we would have to let a construction contract. So these minor changes have been made. They will not impact our procurement operations at this time. And this is the only section that contains any changes. So I'm asking the commission to please approve this guideline again for the new fiscal year that begins on Friday.
So let's start with, may I have a motion to approve the 4.01% salary increase? May I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Partridge. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sabu. Is there any discussion? So let us move and council will call the roll, please.
Okay, the question is on the county compensation item. Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Vigilic,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Hainsworth, Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you very much. And now may I have a motion to approve the FY23 procurement guidelines?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
thank you. I do have one question. I certainly will vote in the affirmative for this. I'm curious as to whether or not, I'm sure council can address this for me. Would our FCEDA procurement guidelines apply to recipients of our EDA funding through our bond program?
No, sir.
It would.
No, it would not.
It would not. Okay. Thank
would
you,
not.
sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner Johnson.
Sure.
So let's call the roll, and if you would do so, Council Graff.
Certainly. This is on the update to the authority's procurement
Correct.
guidelines. And I'll start with Ms. Sabu,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Vigilic,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Hainsworth, Treasurer Partridge,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Quigley,
Aye.
Chair Lang.
Aye.
The procurement guideline update has been approved.
Thank you very much. Excellent. So I will move on to my report. It will be very brief. I have asked Commissioner Partridge to join me in a governance committee for us to put together a nomination slate for officers for the next 2 years. So there will be some discussions, and I expect either that slate will be brought forward in July or August. So we have some work cut out for us. As you know, the 4 officers, there's also an option for an assistant secretary, which we'll be exploring, and the terms are 2 years. So stay tuned for that. And secondly, I'd like to invite you all to consider speakers we might engage in the fall. We do have CAP 1 coming in September, I believe it is. But I would like for us to once again find those leaders that can really inform us and engage us and help us be a better and more relevant organization as we go through post-COVID, we hope, and moving into the future. And one last thing, there is a little confusion about how long we're going to stay virtual. We're going to stay virtual until Jeff McKay, I believe, makes some changes. So as far as I know, we're going to be virtual for a while, and we will make sure we're very clear in our communications when we shift back into in-person. So that is my report, and I would like to then turn it over to
Chairwoman Lang, I do have a question though. I was interested that Jennifer mentioned this. Is there a way that, like, do we need to meet every month? Maybe that's a question for Mr. Graff.
No, I can answer that question.
Okay, because I know the
can
Board of
answer that
Supervisors
question.
takes off the month of August, so I thought it would be a worthy question to ask.
I will certainly let our council reinforce my answer, but we by law have to meet monthly. It doesn't have to be this Monday or this Tuesday, but we need to meet as a commission on a monthly basis.
Well, that's the
That
work
takes
from
care
God
of
then, I
that.
take it.
Unfortunately, I don't think this is even a county change. I think this would require
Legislative change.
legislative change
Yeah.
down in Richmond. Yeah,
It's not a county change.
yeah.
So,
Well, we'll thank the General Assembly for that.
yeah.
Hey, Joe, if you're up
You're a
for
policy guy.
tackle that one for us. We're
Yeah,
up for
go for it.
that conversation. There's no one here that would fight you on that one.
Yeah.
No, I think everyone would enjoy that, the staff included. So maybe that will be another meeting of the governance committee at a later point in
That
time.
sounds great.
Thank you. Great idea. Okay.
Kathy, on mute.
Yeah, I see it. For our president and CEO, Victor Hoskins.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly. Next slide, please. So it was a very busy month. Started off with as you all know, I am the chair of the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance. And in that role, I get to meet with the BEDP leadership team and the regional economic development directors from across the state, which is fantastic. On May 25th, I went and I actually presented a couple of awards down in Richmond, Virginia. We were sponsors of the Small Women and Minority-Owned Business Conference down there. Actually, we did that along with Arlington. It was fantastic. We had 2 winners from Fairfax County. Next slide, please. I recently joined the Capital Area Food Bank, and I'm on their governance committee and began my services there. They only meet quarterly. I just thought I'd mention that. And of course, Connected DMV, we're still rolling along. I'm serving as co-chairs with the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development for DC, and also with the head of the Maryland Alliance, who is David Iannucci from Prince George's County. Next slide, please. I got a chance to be on iHeartRadio in a podcast. It's a program called CEOs You Should Know. I spoke a lot about Fairfax County and also about leadership principles that we love to exercise here. I had my first Capital Area Food Bank meeting on June 8th, and actually in the following week, we released a study on hunger in the region, which has gone up an extraordinary amount due to COVID, and some of the strategies that we're implementing in order to attack that, not just in DC, but all throughout Northern Virginia and Maryland and suburban Maryland. Next slide, please. Connected DMV continues to push forward on the Regional Economic Development Strategy 2.0. We've actually been talking about very specific conferences that we would like to attend, branding approaches, and there's now even a draft video of how we're going to market the region together. And it actually had a very positive feedback from all the players involved, which I was really happy about. I had the opportunity to tour, actually to go in my first Amazon Fresh store. I've never seen so many cameras in my life. Guys, there are like 3,000 cameras in the ceiling. It's pretty amazing. The thing that they warned us about is when you're walking in and you either give your palm print or put your credit card down, don't stand too close to anyone else, because anyone with you that picks up something, you will be paying for it. Next slide, please. I had a chance to do a podcast with the former, she's the former CEO of the DC chamber. She now has her own show called Barbara's Banter. I had opportunity to do a podcast on that show, also talking about not just Fairfax County, but also Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance, and how we're trying to really join and bring together the entire region. In addition to that, I had a podcast with my friend, Bob McCartney. You may remember him. He was a reporter for almost 30 plus years at Washington Post. He's now doing a podcast once a month. And actually he interviews 3 people and he creates a montage of that. And I was one of the people that he interviewed. And we spoke mostly about regionalism and regional cooperation and competing as a region globally. Next slide, please. Of course, the DMV Congress continues to meet. There were 2 topics at this session, which were of a lot of interest to everyone. One, status of Amazon HQ2, that was presented by Brian Kenner, who is head of HQ2 policy, and also the status of the Virginia Tech campus, which everyone knows is rolling right along. I think they got $50 million from Boeing and then followed on by another $10 million. So that's moving pretty briskly. Of course, we had another Virginia Economic Development REDO meeting in June. In this one, we really focused on where the budget was for economic development. They have put up a lot of money for what they call a site-ready strategy. That's looking at sites that are 50 acres or more, that a lot of the site locators look for their clients. As a matter of fact, the recent Lego announcement was actually a site that was ready, that was large enough, but we need more of those sites like that in our state if we're going to attract gigafactories and other facilities that really are very popular in states that are more rural than ours. Next slide, please. I also had the opportunity to participate in Meet Charlie Tuna at a StarKiss event. This was a group of StarKiss volunteers and the CEO of StarKiss, and also the head of policy for Feed the Children. And it was really to fight hunger. StarKiss put together 400 meals for families. And it was amazing how many people were lined up even before the event began. It's such a fantastic purpose. StarKiss has been doing this for over 100 years. They started doing this back in 1917 when there was a protein crisis during World War I. So this is part of their DNA. And the people that were there, their hearts were so much in it. And I was really proud of the Reston group that was Cornerstone is the group. They were so committed to making this happen, and they were part of the logistics team. Really, really a wonderful event. Also, I had an opportunity to be with the chair of the Board of Supervisors, as well as the Supervisor Stork and County Executive Hill, down for a groundbreaking at the Workhouse Art Center. The Workhouse Art Center, many of you know, has been in the process of being redeveloped. And this is a $6 million investment by the county, and they're looking for a brewer and a restaurant for these two buildings that they're renovating. And I think it's going to be a fantastic project, and we're going to help them market this project. Next slide, please. I just finished before this meeting. I was on a panel with the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Jeff McKay, who, by the way, is just what a brilliant salesman he is. He is so good. Actually, I didn't even want to say anything. He was so good. I mean, the guy is he's 200%, I got to say. He understands the county. He knows the county. He loves the county. And he and I were interviewed by Barbara Byron, who is now moving over to work for him. She's leaving her position as Director of Planning. Next slide. Winding up with international, this month I had an opportunity to meet with a group from Korea. This is their small business administration. I think they have like a $6 billion budget. It was fantastic to meet with these guys because they support businesses not just in Korea, but businesses that are trading internationally, that are trying to find landing places and growing. And we actually are going to do a video with a series of their businesses, actually to market businesses in Korea to come here. We also did an event, and I have to say, Juhi Natani did an amazing job. Her, Jatinder, and others on this event at the Indian Embassy. I had the opportunity to present with the ambassador, myself, Secretary of Commerce from the state, Merrick, and the Secretary of Agriculture. It was a great event, well executed. There were about 125 businesses there. Majority of them were Indian, of Indian origin. About 25% were of other origin, but it was a fantastic event. And actually, I think it's going to turn into some business for us. Next slide, please. Continuing the international theme, I went to the Japan Virginia night where we really highlight businesses from Japan that are resident in our jurisdictions. It was a fantastic opportunity, again, to see Secretary Merrick and also the Secretary of Agriculture again, but also the Japanese ambassador, who spoke very highly of the relationship between Virginia and Japan, and also in particular Northern Virginia, because he was very familiar with Northern Virginia. Next slide, please. I was honored by given a couple of awards last month, both in May. One from the Washington Magazine, a Tech Titan Award for the work that I've been doing with technology companies, not just here in Fairfax County, but actually throughout the region. And then technically put together a list of a group of us who are working on creating an ecosystem for people of all colors and people of both genders, which is really fantastic. And that is the end of my report. And I will now hand it over to Stephen to talk a little bit about the Fairfax Pulse. Stephen, take the mic.
Thank you very much, Victor. And good evening, commissioners. Next slide, please. So we're excited to present our latest installment of the county's economic indicator dashboard, the Fairfax County Pulse. We'll start on the workforce side, where unemployment remains low and continues to decrease in the midst of a tight labor market, as we just heard from Jennifer. And this is why we would like to see our labor force continue increasing each month and continue to approach pre-COVID levels, as this is representative of our labor pool. The current unemployment rate is at 2.2% and is considerably below the US rate of 3.6% and many of our peer markets. And looking at the latest monthly job posting data, 2022 has reached levels above those recorded pre-pandemic. And as we continue to hear more whispers of a recession, this is one of the indicators we'll be closely monitoring in the coming months, as new jobs posted can be reported daily. And so it's instantaneously reflective of how employers view future demand. That'll be a really important indicator for us. And companies will start to pull back on these postings if the future demand is not there, which we're already seeing on the national level a little bit. And that's mainly reflected in some of the tech and residential real estate industries. Next slide, please. On the employer and real estate side, we have a bit of a mixed bag. The office vacancy rate has sharply increased 2% since the beginning of the pandemic. And many of the latest indicators coming out of over the last 6 months are showing that the rate of increase will continue in the near future. That is the case. We could see that figure surpassing the 16.3% that vacancy rate that we recorded in 2013. On a positive note, we are seeing record number of employer establishments in Fairfax County, that being businesses with payroll employees. We have not seen a figure like that dating back to 2001, that 38,000 figure, which shows our business ecosystem and foundation to support new businesses is really thriving. And the last two indicators are two that by themselves show as very strong for Fairfax County's economy, but can also be viewed as points of concern in our economic climate. Taxable sales is higher than pre-COVID figures, but this revenge demand isn't really being met with the supply side of that, as we're seeing supply chain issues and a couple of other factors playing into this. And now, as a result of that, we're seeing inflationary numbers spike. In addition, the tight labor market I mentioned on the last page has driven up wages across the board, as we have recorded a 5% year-over-year increase. Comparatively, over other metros like Miami, Austin, and San Francisco, they're seeing increase of over 7% year over year. So we're, compared to some of our peer markets, we're not seeing a steep of an increase, even for those that are considered well established. So we know that the Federal Reserve is already taking action to reel in the inflation and the record inflation that we're seeing, but as you know, that always runs the risk of sending our economy into a recession. And so we'll be closely monitoring this situation in the coming months. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And we have our new Vice President of Talent Initiatives.
Thank you, Victor.
Mike Batt.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll touch on a couple of things from the talent initiative area. Before I get into the great career fair that we had last month, I'll just note we as of this week, just sort of a teaser for getting into the numbers for next month, but we exceeded all the talent metrics that we had for our talent site. And the one I want to just emphasize that I'm really pleased with, and it touched on what Jennifer Ives was talking about earlier, which is trying to reach that remote talent across the country. So working with DCI, they did just in the last quarter did some adjusting on our digital marketing and digital advertising, and that helped us reach more talent from around the country. So exceeded the numbers in those 10 markets that we're trying to reach talent for, that we're doing job searches for us here, remote jobs and jobs that would bring them here to Fairfax County. So we're thrilled with that. So on the slide that we're showing here, last month we had the Veteran Military Spouse Career Fair. You know, the core charter and the reason we do these is to help our companies fill their jobs. But we're accomplishing a lot of goals here. What I really love on that bottom right is helping our companies, find transitioning veterans and military spouse. So if you look at that picture right there, that you have a veteran talking to the Microsoft booth there, and the next booth over you have military spouse with their children talking to some of our companies. So really great event. And what was even more compelling, we had, if you look at that small picture in the center on the top, we had Virginia Department of Veteran Services and Fort Belvoir's Transition Assistance Program Office help us. And we set up a couple of conference rooms to review resumes for those transitioning and those military spouses, and had over 35 people take us up on that to review resumes. So really productive event. And then of course our county executives and our leadership really find value in this and love to come present. So we had Supervisor Stork presented the Military Spouse Appreciation Week proclamation that the board approved to the Deputy Commander, Garrison Commander John Moeller. And we also had the commander there, Colonel Seagraves, Supervisor Lusk. We had Fairfax County Public Schools Board member Karen Corbett Sanders speak. So a lot of great interaction, and you can see just some of the respondents from the job seekers saying this was an amazing event. So if we go to the next slide, that one really hits home on the fact that our partnerships keep growing. We had 7 different partnering organizations from a couple of the state agencies and Chamber, Virginia Chamber with their Hire Vets Now. And we had over 600 registrants across both the in-person one day and virtual the next. Bottom left there, that really drives home what we're trying to achieve. Our companies said 75% of the 140 recruiters we had rated those candidates as either put them in our pipeline, screen them, or interview. So the feedback's really good from our companies, and we're thrilled with that. And you can see, Chairman McKay chiming in and tweeting on the event for the day. So really productive event over those 2 days. If we go on to the next slide, really, we're also working to extend our reach and our partnerships. And so Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce has just launched a workforce network. And so we have signed up to be a signature sponsor there, and I provided the keynote presentation at their inaugural kickoff last month, which was very well attended. And then Victor and the leadership are sponsoring the Virginia Chamber of Commerce Hire Vets Now, and I'm co-chairing a subcommittee on connecting vets to jobs. And so we've been down to Richmond participating in that. And one of our key metrics and targets that we have on that is try to engage our companies, both the large and our small businesses, on embracing Virginia Values veterans, but even more importantly, the Skill Bridge program, which is that DoD program where DoD funds putting their transitioning service members into our companies, pretty much like an apprenticeship program. So we're going to really put some effort into that going into the next fiscal year. So really just extending our partnerships across the board. And we're thrilled with the results for the year that we look forward to sharing next month. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Tarazadi to talk the marketing plan for the last month.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and good evening, commissioners. Anna is on vacation, so she'll be back presenting in July for the commission meeting. With that, I have the privilege to report out the May activity for marketing communications. And you just heard Mike talk about the ongoing success of the Talent Initiative program. For marketing communications, we had a solid month for media, web, and social. Starting off with media outreach in the month of May, we had nearly 1,100 placements that reached 1.9 billion. Yes, that's with a B, billion. And that generated $1.8 million in earned media value. First, there was the announcement of Clark Construction opening a regional office here in Tysons. Next, we did targeted outreach to our key markets outside of the US to promote FCEDA activity. For the month of May, we started with India and South Korea because our business investment managers were planning outreach trips there. And thanks to the hard work of our international business investment team, we landed placements with international outlets and publications. On May 20th, we sent out a press release, which was highlighting that Fairfax County returned to India with better and brighter opportunities for business. That was picked up by media in India. And then in South Korea, on May 25th, the Electronic Times, which is a Korean media outlet, published an article about our organization. You can see the screenshot on the far right side of the screen. Charles Kim, who is our FCEDA's international rep in Korea, he informed us that we received positive feedback on this placement from a few prospects. And they said that the article was very useful and helped them understand Fairfax County and the FCEDA. So we're looking forward to continuing this activity with all of our outreach methods internationally and continuing to wave the Fairfax County flag globally. Moving over to the performance of our digital platforms, May was one of the best months for increase of users and sessions on the FCEDA website. Sessions were up 20% and users were up 28%, thanks to the ongoing work of DCI and the Marcom division. For social, we saw continued growth. That was a 2% increase in total followers across all social media channels. And our organic content had a reach of 78,326 for the month of May. For organic, that's really well. Lastly, on the far right of the screen are two examples of a series of targeted digital ads that are currently running in the Wall Street Journal. We started this campaign in mid-May, and it's going to last through the end of June. The objective of this campaign is to promote the FCEDA brand, business investment assets, along with opportunities. And once Anna returns, she's really excited to share the results of the campaign to the commission in July.
Hey, Andrew, real quick question. The sessions and users, did you say it's year over year or month over month? And that's for total web traffic, is that right?
Yes, this was a month over month for us, and that we received our best month.
That's insane to have that type of increase in 1 month. I mean, that would be an annual number normally.
It's really good. We're seeing a lot of pickup based around a lot of the campaigns that we're running, and then also with DCI implementing the SEO strategy as well. A lot of good results.
Congrats, that's fantastic.
Thank you. So that wraps up the communication report. If there's no additional questions, then I'll pass it back to Victor to.
I was just going to say too, thank you for channeling Alan too. I loved your 1.8 with a B.
Yes, with a B. You know, he taught me well.
I was like, oh, I almost had a little tear for Alan. I'm like, oh, Alan lives.
Yes. I spoke to Alan. He's doing really well. He said hi to everybody.
Oh, that's great.
Well, listen, Andrew, thank you so much, and really thank the team for the amazing work you guys have been doing. It's just been incredible. And in those numbers, I feel like you, Vice Chair Quigley, that wow, 20% in 1 month, month over month, that's incredible. So we're going to try to keep it up. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Lang to close us out. Chair Lang.
Thank you so much. I just want to congratulate you, Victor, and the team for a phenomenal year. Every report is so exciting to hear. I just don't know how you have enough hours in the day, all of you, to get everything that you're getting done. So congratulations. And I particularly want to congratulate Mike Batt for his promotion. Mike, you have been a super duper star and leading the way, and really made, with the team, a tremendous difference, and really embraced a very creative way to bring workforce and companies together to build our economic strength here. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a great partnership with the whole team.
Yeah, and you're building more partnerships within and without the organization. So that's phenomenal. With that, I have nothing else to add other than we will be meeting in a couple of weeks. And so with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, and then we will adjourn by consent. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you
Second the
very much.
motion.
And I assume, Mike, we can just do it by consent. Is that
Yeah,
right?
if there's no objection, the meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.